The notification hit my phone at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. You have been blocked by Sophie Vale. Not a text explaining why. Not a call to hash things out. Just a cold digital slap across the face while my wife was supposedly sipping wine with her girlfriends in Portugal. I stared at the screen in our empty kitchen, the smart home's ambient lighting casting everything in an eerie blue glow. Sophie had left 3 days ago for what she called her much-needed girls' trip to Lisbon. Much needed from what, exactly? Our marriage had been rocky, sure, but blocking your husband seemed like nuclear option territory. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Ethan Vale, and I'm a cybersecurity specialist for a mid-sized tech company here in Millfield, Maine. I know my way around digital breadcrumbs, which is probably why Sophie's sudden communication blackout felt less like a relationship hiccup and more like a carefully planned operation. I pulled up her Instagram. The latest post showed her alone at some Portuguese cafe, caption reading, "Finally free to be me. Solo vibes. New beginnings." Solo? I thought this was a girls' trip. Where were Chloe and the other friends she'd supposedly gone with? Something wasn't adding up. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. Her cheerful recorded voice felt like mockery. "Hi, you've reached Sophie. I'm probably off living my best life, so leave a message." "Living your best life," I muttered, setting the phone down harder than necessary. "By blocking your husband." The house felt different without her constant chatter, her reality TV shows playing in the background, her endless phone calls with friends dissecting every minor social drama in our small Maine town. The silence should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt ominous. I wandered into my workshop in the basement, my sanctuary filled with computer monitors, servers, and enough networking equipment to run a small business. Sophie always rolled her eyes at my nerd cave, but right now, those skills might come in handy. First, I checked our joint credit card statements online. The Portugal charges were there, flights, hotels, restaurants. But something caught my eye. The hotel reservation showed 2 guests, not the 4 or 5 I'd expected for a girls' trip. And the room type? Romantic suite, with ocean view. My stomach dropped. I pulled up our home security system. Sophie thought I'd installed it for burglars, but I'd also configured it to keep deleted footage for 30 days. Call it paranoia or professional habit. In cybersecurity, you learn that people aren't always who they claim to be. The footage from 3 days ago showed Sophie packing, but not the casual clothes she'd described for her relaxing getaway with the girls. I watched her fold a black lace negligee I'd never seen before, pack high heels that cost more than my monthly car payment, and slip what looked like a second phone into her purse. A second phone. My hands trembled slightly as I enhanced the video quality. There it was, a sleek iPhone in a red case, definitely not the blue one she normally carried, the one I was blocked on. I needed to talk to Chloe Martinez, Sophie's supposed travel companion and longtime friend. If anyone would know what was really going on, it would be her. I found Chloe's number and called. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding groggy. "Ethan? It's like midnight. What's wrong?" "Hey, Chloe, sorry to wake you. I just wanted to check how the trip was going. Sophie's been quiet." There was a pause, a long one. "Trip?" Chloe's voice had changed, become careful. "What trip?" My heart started pounding. "The girls' trip. To Portugal. The one you've been planning for months." "Ethan." Another pause. "I'm in my apartment in Portland. I haven't been planning any trip with Sophie." The phone felt heavy in my hand. "But she said..." "She said what exactly?" I realized I was gripping the phone too tightly. "She said you and a few other friends were going to Lisbon for a long weekend. She left Tuesday morning." "Ethan, I haven't talked to Sophie in over 2 weeks. We had a fight about... Well, it doesn't matter now. But I'm definitely not in Portugal with her. The basement suddenly felt cold. What was the fight about? Chloe sighed. Look, I probably shouldn't, but since she's apparently using me as an alibi, I guess you deserve to know. I told her she needed to stop what she was doing, that it wasn't fair to you. Stop what? The affair, Ethan. I told her to either end it or tell you about it. She chose option 3, apparently. Lie to everyone. The words hit like a physical blow. I'd suspected, deep down, but hearing it confirmed made my vision blur for a moment. Who? I managed to ask. Eric Landon. The real estate guy with the fancy car and the boat. They've been involved for about 6 months. Eric Landon. I knew him vaguely. One of those guys who wore expensive suits to the grocery store and talked loudly on his phone about closing deals. He had a reputation around town as a player, the kind of man who collected trophies. Apparently, my wife was his latest prize. Ethan, you still there? Yeah, I said, though my voice sounded strange to my own ears. Thanks for telling me. I'm sorry, I really thought she would have. I hoped she'd come to her senses. After hanging up, I sat in my workshop for a long time, staring at the bank of monitors. The logical part of my brain, the part that debugged code and solved technical problems for a living, was already formulating a plan. If Sophie wanted to play games, she'd picked the wrong opponent. I pulled up the laptop she'd left behind, the one she used for her event planning business. Sophie wasn't particularly tech-savvy. She used the same password for everything. Sophie Vale 2024, with the exclamation point she thought made it secure. Her browser history told the story Chloe had started. Hotel searches for romantic getaways, research on divorce lawyers, and most damning, a saved draft email to Eric that she'd never sent. Can't wait to be free of E and start our real life together. Portugal will be perfect for planning our future. Our future. As if I were already erased from existence. But the most interesting discovery was in her deleted emails folder. Messages between Sophie and Eric discussing their exit strategy. They'd been planning this for months. The trip to Portugal wasn't just an affair, it was a reconnaissance mission for their new life together. I screenshotted everything. By 3 a.m., I had a complete digital picture of my wife's betrayal. The question now was what to do about it. I could confront her when she returned, file for divorce, split our assets, and move on. That's what a reasonable person would do. But Sophie had made one critical error in her planning. She'd blocked me, thinking it would keep me in the dark while she gallivanted around Europe with her lover. Instead, she'd given me time and motivation to uncover the full scope of her deception, and I was feeling far from reasonable. I opened a new browser window and started researching Eric Landon. If my wife wanted to burn our marriage down, the least I could do was return the favor. Eric's real estate company had a flashy website full of testimonials and photos of him standing next to expensive properties. His social media painted him as Millfield's most eligible bachelor, lots of photos with different women at upscale restaurants and yacht club events. A real charmer. But a deeper dive revealed some interesting details. Eric was leveraged to the hilt, multiple mortgages, car loans, and credit lines all secured against his business assets. His lifestyle was essentially a house of cards, dependent on continuous sales and his reputation as a successful agent. A reputation that could be easily damaged by the right information getting to the right people. I spent the rest of the night crafting my response. Not an angry text or a pleading voicemail. Sophie would never receive those anyway, thanks to her block. Instead, I decided to send a message through the one channel she couldn't control, her friend network. The next morning, I called Chloe back. I need a favor, I said without preamble. Ethan, I'm really sorry about last night. I probably should have. I need you to pass along a message to Sophie. I told you, we're not really talking right now. You will be. Trust me on this. When she realizes I know the truth, she'll reach out to everyone trying to control the narrative. When she does, I need you to tell her exactly this. Ethan says the house locks have been changed, the joint accounts are frozen, and Eric's wife knows everything. There was silence on the other end. Eric's wife? Chloe finally asked. Divorced, actually, but his ex-wife Sarah still lives in town, and she has custody of their 2 kids. She also has a very active social media presence and a lot of friends at the yacht club where Eric likes to show off. Ethan, what are you planning? I'm planning to give my wife the same courtesy she gave me, a surprise she'll never forget. After hanging up with Chloe, I got to work. First, I changed the locks on our house. A simple matter of calling a locksmith and showing my ID proving I lived there. Then I visited our bank and froze our joint accounts, citing suspicious activity while one account holder was traveling. The bank was surprisingly accommodating when I showed them the unusual overseas spending patterns. The third step required a bit more finesse. I'd found Sarah Landon's Facebook profile, and she seemed like the type of person who'd be very interested to know that her ex-husband was planning to relocate to Portugal with a married woman. I created an anonymous email account and sent Sarah a carefully worded message. Thought you should know Eric is planning to move overseas with a married woman named Sophie Vale. They're currently in Lisbon together planning their new life. Might want to talk to your lawyer about how this affects child support. I included screenshots of Sophie and Eric's planning emails, with my own name redacted. By Thursday afternoon, my preparations were complete. Now I just had to wait for Sophie to discover her new reality. I didn't have to wait long. My phone, the one Sophie had blocked, started buzzing at 2:17 p.m. The caller ID showed her number, which meant she'd unblocked me in her panic. I let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately, and again. By 2:30 p.m., I had 14 missed calls and a string of increasingly frantic voicemails. Ethan, what the hell did you do? Call me back right now. The bank says our accounts are frozen. You can't do this. I'm coming home early. We need to talk about this like adults. The final voicemail was different, quieter, more calculating. Ethan, I know you're upset, but you're making a mistake. Eric and I... It's not what you think. I can explain everything when I get home. Don't do anything else stupid while I'm gone. Stupid. After months of planning her exit strategy, after blocking me and lying about her whereabouts, she was calling my response stupid. I decided it was time to escalate. I drove to Eric's office, a glass-fronted building near the marina where he could watch the expensive boats while he worked. His red Porsche was parked in its usual spot, taking up 2 spaces like the owner's ego. The receptionist, a young woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a real estate marketing brochure, greeted me with a practiced smile. Hi there, are you looking to buy or sell today? Actually, I'm looking for Eric. I'm Ethan Vale, Sophie's husband. The smile faltered slightly. So Eric had mentioned me. Interesting. Oh, Mr. Landon is currently out of the office. He's traveling. Right, Portugal, with my wife. I kept my voice conversational, friendly even. When he gets back, could you give him a message? The receptionist looked deeply uncomfortable now. Sure? Tell him that his little European adventure is about to get very expensive. His ex-wife's lawyer is already asking questions about hidden assets and international travel with paramours. Apparently that kind of thing can affect child support arrangements. I left her with that bombshell and walked back to my car. Through the office window, I could see her frantically dialing her phone. Probably calling Eric to warn him. Good. Let them both sweat. My phone rang before I'd even left the parking lot. Sophie again. This time I answered. Hello, darling. How's Portugal? Ethan, what the fuck is wrong with you? Her voice was shrill, panicked. You can't just freeze our accounts, that's my money too. Our money, I corrected. From our marriage. The one you've been planning to end for 6 months while fucking Eric Landon. Silence. I know about the emails, Sophie. I know about the exit strategy. I know this isn't a girls' trip. Chloe told me she's been home in Portland this whole time. You went through my computer? Your computer, in our house. That I pay for with our joint account that funded your romantic getaway. Ethan, listen to me, it's not what I think. You're right. It's worse than I thought. You've been planning this for months, lying to my face every day, using our friends as alibis. Did you really think I'd just sit here waiting for you to come home and serve me divorce papers? We need to talk about this in person, like adults. Adults don't block their spouses and run off to Europe with their lovers. Adults don't spend months planning secret exits. You want to be treated like an adult? Start acting like one. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Two could play that game. Friday morning brought new developments. My doorbell rang at 7 a.m., and I opened it to find Tommy, my younger brother, holding 2 cups of coffee and grinning. "Heard you're having some marital difficulties," he said, pushing past me into the kitchen. "Figured you could use some backup." Tommy was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, impulsive, and completely unburdened by overthinking. He worked construction, rode a motorcycle, and had never met a problem he couldn't solve with direct action. "How did you—" "Small town, brother. Word gets around. Plus, Chloe called me. She's worried you're going to do something crazy." "Crazy?" I accepted the coffee gratefully. "I changed the locks and froze our accounts. That's just good financial planning. And contacted Eric's ex-wife, and visited his office to threaten his business." I shrugged. "Information wants to be free." Tommy laughed. "I always knew I liked you better than Sophie. So what's the plan?" "Plan? Come on, Ethan. I know you. You've got some elaborate revenge scheme cooking in that devious brain of yours." I want in. I had to admit, having an ally felt good. Sophie had always dismissed Tommy as a bad influence, which in hindsight was probably a recommendation. "She's coming back today," I said. "Her flight lands at 2 p.m. And she's going to find that her key doesn't work, her credit cards are canceled, and her belongings are packed in boxes in the garage." Classic. What about Loverboy? Eric's about to discover that his ex-wife is very interested in his recent travel expenses, and his business partners might be curious about why he's planning to relocate to Portugal without mentioning it to them. Tommy grinned. "You're diabolical. I love it. But what if they try to fight back?" "With what? Sophie's been living off our joint income for 2 years, while her event planning business barely broke even. Eric's leveraged to his eyeballs and about to face some very expensive legal complications. They've got nothing. Except each other. Yeah, well, let's see how long that lasts when the money runs out and the lawyers start circling." We spent the morning boxing up Sophie's belongings. I was methodical about it. Clothes folded neatly, jewelry in padded containers, personal items wrapped carefully. I wasn't trying to damage her things, just make it clear that she no longer lived here. Tommy provided running commentary as we worked. "Jesus, how many pairs of shoes does one person need?" "Apparently 47. I counted." "And what's with all these diet books? She's been buying them for years." Sophie's always been aspirational. She buys things that represent who she wants to be, rather than who she is. "Like a faithful wife?" I paused in my packing. "Apparently." At 1:30 p.m. I got a text from an unknown number. "On my way home. We need to talk. Don't make this harder than it has to be." S. She'd gotten a new phone or borrowed someone else's to contact me. Clever. I texted back, "Your things are in the garage. Keys no longer work. Talk to your lawyer." My phone immediately rang. Unknown number again. "Ethan, please, just let me explain." "Explain what? How you've been fucking Eric for 6 months? How you've been planning to leave me while pretending everything was fine? How you blocked me so you could have a romantic getaway without any inconvenient reminders of your actual life? It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen? Were you going to send me a postcard from Lisbon?" "I was going to tell you when I got back. I was going to ask for a divorce properly. After your romantic European vacation with your new boyfriend. How thoughtful." "Ethan, I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Sophie. I'm done. There's a difference. I hung up and turned to Tommy. Showtime. We positioned ourselves in the living room with a clear view of the driveway. At 2:45 p.m., a taxi pulled up and Sophie got out, looking tanned and beautiful and completely unprepared for what she was about to face. She tried her key first. When it didn't work, she rang the doorbell. When I didn't answer, she started pounding on the door. Ethan, I know you're in there. Open this door right now. I opened the window instead. Your things are in the garage, I called down. The code is your birthday. I'm not going anywhere until we talk. Then you're going to be standing there for a long time. I've got Netflix and takeout menus. How's your stamina? She stormed around to the garage, and I heard the door rolling up. A few minutes later, she was back at the front door. You packed everything? Everything? I'm thorough. Where am I supposed to go? I hear Portugal is nice this time of year. Tommy was trying not to laugh. Sophie's voice was getting higher and more strained. Ethan, please. I know I handled this badly, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can get divorced. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. I don't have a lawyer. Then you should probably get one. There was silence for a moment, then the sound of her phone dialing. Eric? It's me. He changed the locks. I know. What do you mean Sarah called you? What lawyer? I couldn't hear Eric's side of the conversation, but Sophie's responses painted a clear picture. Eric was dealing with his own crisis and wasn't particularly interested in Sophie's housing situation. What do you mean you can't see me tonight? Eric, we talked about this. I left my husband for you. More silence then. Eric? Eric? Apparently, he'd hung up on her. Tommy raised an eyebrow. Trouble in paradise? Sounds like it. Sophie tried the doorbell again. When I didn't answer, she started calling my name, then pleading, then making threats about lawyers and taking half of everything. Finally, she played her last card. Fine. I'll tell everyone what kind of man you really are. I'll tell them how controlling and paranoid you've always been, how you spy on people and invade their privacy. I opened the window again. Go ahead. Tell them how your controlling husband discovered your 6-month affair by reading the emails you left on the computer in his own house. Tell them how your paranoid spouse figured out you were lying about a girl's trip when your supposed travel companion was actually home in Portland. I'm sure everyone will be very sympathetic. She stared up at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. She was beginning to understand that I wasn't just angry, I was prepared. This isn't over, she said finally. Yes, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet. She left in another taxi, and I watched her go with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. The satisfaction was obvious, but the sadness surprised me. Not sadness for our marriage. That had been dead for months, maybe years. Sadness for the person I'd thought Sophie was, before I learned who she really was. Tommy clapped me on the shoulder. Round one to you, brother, but she'll be back. I'm counting on it. Saturday brought the counterattack I'd been expecting. Sophie had clearly spent the night planning her response, and she came out swinging. First, she tried to turn our mutual friends against me. I started getting calls and texts from people asking if it was true that I'd thrown Sophie out and stolen all her money. Sophie was painting herself as the victim of a controlling, vindictive husband who'd overreacted to a minor relationship issue. I responded to each inquiry the same way. Ask Sophie about Eric Landon and her 6-month affair. Ask her about the Portugal trip she lied about. Ask her about the exit strategy emails I found on her computer. The calls stopped coming pretty quickly after that. Next, Sophie tried the legal route. A lawyer called my office Friday afternoon, demanding that I restore Sophie's access to the house and joint accounts immediately. I referred him to my own attorney, Janet Morrison, a sharp-tongued woman in her 50s who specialized in messy divorces. Your wife's lawyer is an idiot, Janet told me during our consultation. You haven't done anything illegal. You changed the locks on your own house and froze joint accounts due to suspicious activity. Any judge would call that reasonable under the circumstances. What about her claim that I'm being vindictive? She's the one who committed adultery and lied about her whereabouts. She's not exactly in a position to claim moral high ground. Besides, you documented everything. The emails, the false alibi, the hotel reservations. This is going to be a very short divorce proceeding. Janet was right. By Monday, Sophie's lawyer was already talking settlement instead of demanding I restore her access to everything. But Sophie wasn't done fighting. Tuesday evening, I was having dinner at Murphy's Pub, a local place where everyone knew everyone and gossip traveled faster than Wi-Fi. I was sitting at the bar enjoying a burger and a beer when Eric Landon walked in. He looked like hell. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit was wrinkled, and he had the hollow-eyed look of a man who hadn't slept in days. He spotted me immediately and made a beeline for my table. "You son of a bitch," he said, loud enough for the entire bar to hear. "You ruined everything." I took a sip of my beer and looked up at him calmly. "I'm sorry. Do we know each other?" "Don't play dumb. You know exactly what you did." The bar had gone quiet. Everyone was watching our exchange with the kind of fascination reserved for car accidents and reality TV. "I honestly don't know what you're talking about," I said. "Are you Eric Landon, the real estate agent? You contacted my ex-wife. You told her about Sophie." "I don't know your ex-wife, but if someone told her you were planning to relocate to Portugal with a married woman, they were probably doing her a favor. Child support obligations don't disappear just because you move to Europe." Eric's face was turning red. "You have no idea what you've cost me." "Enlighten me." "Sarah's lawyer is freezing my assets until they can do a full audit of my finances. My business partners are questioning my commitment to the company. Sophie won't even take my calls anymore." I nodded sympathetically. "That sounds rough. Maybe you should have thought about the consequences before you started sleeping with other people's wives." "She was leaving you anyway." "Then she should have left me first. Instead, she chose to lie and cheat and drag you into her mess. Poor judgment all around, really." Eric leaned closer, lowering his voice to what he probably thought was a threatening whisper. "This isn't over. I know people. I can make your life very difficult." I leaned back in my chair and smiled. "Eric, let me explain something to you. I work in cybersecurity. I know exactly how to make someone's life difficult, and I know how to do it without breaking any laws. You, on the other hand, are a small-town real estate agent with an expensive lifestyle, an angry ex-wife, suspicious business partners, and a girlfriend who's about to take you for everything you're worth in a divorce settlement." I stood up, leaving money on the table for my meal. "If you want to make this a competition, I'm happy to oblige. But I should warn you, I'm very good at games, and I don't like to lose." I walked out of Murphy's Pub feeling better than I had in months. Behind me, I could hear the bar erupting in conversation as everyone discussed what they'd just witnessed. By Wednesday morning, the entire town knew about Sophie's affair and Eric's role in it. The gossip network in a small Maine town is more efficient than any social media platform, and the story had grown in the telling. I was the wronged husband who'd discovered his wife's betrayal through detective work worthy of a thriller novel. Sophie was the cheating wife who'd lied about a girl's trip to cover her European vacation with her lover. Eric was the home-wrecking real estate agent who was now facing financial ruin because of his poor choices. The narrative had been set, and it wasn't favorable to Sophie or Eric. Thursday brought the final confrontation I'd been expecting. Sophie showed up at my office, somehow getting past security to corner me in the parking lot as I was leaving for lunch. She looked different, thinner, more desperate. The confident woman who'd left for Portugal a week ago had been replaced by someone who was clearly at the end of her rope. "We need to talk," she said, stepping in front of my car. "No, we don't. We need to get divorced. Everything else is just noise." "Ethan, please, I made a mistake. I know that now, but we can fix this." Fix what? The 6 months of lies? The affair? The secret planning to leave me? Which part exactly do you want to fix? All of it. I'll end things with Eric. I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. I looked at her carefully. She seemed sincere, but then again, she'd seemed sincere for months while she was planning her exit strategy. Why? I asked. Why what? Why do you want to fix it now? A week ago, you were planning your new life in Portugal with Eric. What changed? She looked away. It's complicated. Try me. Eric. He's not who I thought he was. When things got difficult, he just disappeared. He won't return my calls. He won't see me. His ex-wife's lawyer is threatening him, and he's acting like it's all my fault. Isn't it? We both made choices. No, Sophie. You made choices. You chose to have an affair. You chose to lie to me for months. You chose to use our friends as alibis. You chose to block me and run off to Europe with your boyfriend. Eric just went along for the ride. She was crying now, which might have moved me a week ago. Today, it just seemed like another manipulation. I don't have anywhere to go, she said finally. I can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford an apartment. I lost my biggest client when word got out about everything. You should have thought about that before you decided to burn your life down. So that's it? You're just going to destroy me? I didn't destroy you, Sophie. I just stopped enabling you. There's a difference. I got in my car and drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I could see her calling someone on her phone. Probably Eric, who probably wouldn't answer. The divorce papers were filed the following Monday. Janet had crafted them beautifully. A straightforward dissolution based on adultery, with a reasonable division of assets that heavily favored me due to Sophie's infidelity and deception. Sophie's lawyer tried to negotiate, but she had no leverage. The evidence of her affair was overwhelming. Her lies about the trip were documented, and her secret planning had been preserved in her own emails. The settlement was finalized within 3 weeks. I kept the house, the car, and most of our savings. Sophie got her personal belongings, her failing business, and a small settlement that would cover a security deposit on an apartment if she was careful with it. She also got Eric Landon for what that was worth. The last I heard, Eric's real estate business was struggling due to the scandal. His ex-wife's lawyer had successfully frozen most of his assets pending a child support review, and his business partners were looking for ways to buy him out of the company. Sophie had moved in with him, which solved her housing problem but created new ones. 2 people with damaged reputations, dwindling finances, and a relationship built on deception and betrayal were apparently not living happily ever after. Who could have predicted that? I was cleaning out the last of Sophie's things from the house when I found her journal, tucked behind some books on a shelf she thought I never looked at. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. The entries from 6 months ago painted a picture of a woman who felt trapped and unappreciated, who saw Eric as her ticket to a more exciting life. The more recent entries told a different story: doubts about Eric's character, fears about leaving me, and a growing realization that she was in over her head. The final entry, written the day before she left for Portugal, was the most revealing. I know I'm making a mistake, but I'm in too deep to turn back now. Ethan deserves better than this, but I can't figure out how to tell him the truth. Maybe when I get back from the trip, I'll have the courage to be honest. Maybe Eric and I will figure out a way to make this work that doesn't hurt everyone. Maybe I'm just a coward who's about to ruin 3 lives because I was too selfish to appreciate what I had. I closed the journal and added it to the box of her belongings. Even at the end, Sophie had understood exactly what she was doing and why it was wrong. She'd just chosen to do it anyway. That night, I sat in my workshop, my sanctuary that was now truly mine, and reflected on the past month. I'd won by any objective measure. I'd kept the house, the money, and my reputation. Sophie and Eric had lost almost everything, but winning felt different than I'd expected, less triumphant, more hollow. I wasn't sad about the end of my marriage. That had been over long before Sophie left for Portugal. But I was sad about the person I'd discovered I could be when pushed too far. The careful, methodical way I dismantled their lives felt necessary at the time, but in retrospect, it felt cold. Then again, maybe that's what justice actually looked like. Not the hot anger of a betrayed spouse, but the cool calculation of someone who'd been underestimated by people who should have known better. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy now. S." I thought about responding, then deleted the message instead. Sophie had blocked me first, starting this whole chain of events. It seemed fitting that I should have the last word by saying nothing at all. 3 months later, I ran into Chloe at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, like she wasn't sure whether I blamed her for her role in Sophie's deception. "How are you doing?" she asked carefully. "Good," I said, and meant it. "How's Sophie?" "Struggling. She and Eric broke up last month. He's apparently moving to Florida to start over, and she's working at the mall now. Retail." I nodded. It wasn't surprising. Sophie's event planning business had depended heavily on her social connections, and those had evaporated along with her reputation. "She asks about you sometimes," Chloe added. "I think she regrets how everything happened." "I'm sure she does. Do you ever think about... would you ever consider..." "No," I said firmly. "That part of my life is over." Chloe nodded. "I understand. For what it's worth, I think you handled everything, well, maybe not kindly, but fairly. She made her choices." "Yes, she did." I finished my shopping and drove home to my quiet house, my organized workshop, and my uncomplicated life. No drama, no lies, no hidden phones or secret emails. For the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a letter from Sophie. Not a text or an email, but an actual handwritten letter delivered by mail. She'd moved to Boston, she wrote, and was working for a catering company while trying to rebuild her life. She apologized for everything: the affair, the lies, the way she'd handled our marriage. She took full responsibility for her choices and their consequences. She didn't ask for forgiveness or reconciliation, just wanted me to know that she understood what she'd lost and why. The letter was well written, thoughtful, and probably sincere. It was also completely irrelevant. I read it once, then fed it into the shredder in my workshop. Some chapters of life once closed should stay that way. A year later, I was dating again. A librarian named Jennifer who appreciated my quiet humor and didn't mind my cautious approach to relationships. She knew about Sophie and the divorce, but not the details of how it had ended. That story was mine to keep. Jennifer was everything Sophie hadn't been: honest, straightforward, comfortable with herself. She didn't need constant validation or excitement or drama. She was content with quiet dinners, weekend hikes, and conversations that didn't revolve around other people's business. "You're very careful," she observed one evening as we were cooking dinner together. "Careful how?" "With trust, with commitment, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop." I considered this. "Maybe I am." "That's okay," she said, stirring the pasta sauce. "Trust should be earned, not assumed. I can wait." That's when I knew I was falling in love with her. 2 years after Sophie left for Portugal, Tommy got married. At his wedding reception, someone mentioned seeing Sophie at a restaurant in Boston with a new boyfriend, a chef she'd met through her catering job. "Good for her," I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. Tommy raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Really. She's not my problem anymore. If she's found someone who makes her happy and she's learned from her mistakes, then good for her." "That's very mature of you." "I've had time to process." "And you're happy with Jennifer?" I looked across the reception hall to where Jennifer was chatting with Tommy's new wife, laughing at something one of them had said. She caught my eye and smiled, and I felt that familiar warmth that had nothing to do with revenge or vindication or winning. Yeah, I said. I'm happy. The final chapter of the Sophie saga came 3 years later, in the form of a wedding announcement in the Portland newspaper. Sophie Martinez, she'd gone back to her maiden name, was marrying David Chen, a restaurant owner from Boston. The photo showed a smiling couple who looked genuinely happy together. I showed the announcement to Jennifer over breakfast. "How do you feel about that?" she asked. "Relieved, I think. It means she's really moved on. We both have. No regrets?" I thought about it. About the marriage? No. About how it ended. Sometimes. I could have handled things with more grace. You were hurt and angry. You're human. I was systematic and calculating. There's a difference. Jennifer reached across the table and took my hand. You protected yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe she was right. Maybe the cold, methodical way I'd dismantled Sophie's life had been necessary self-defense rather than cruel revenge. Maybe there was no graceful way to handle betrayal on that scale. Or maybe I'd simply discovered that, when pushed far enough, I was capable of being just as ruthless as the people who'd tried to destroy me. Either way, it was over now. Sophie had her new life, I had mine, and Eric had presumably found his way to Florida and whatever fresh start he'd been seeking. The only winner in the end was time, which had healed the wounds and faded the anger, and turned a devastating betrayal into just another story about people who'd made bad choices and lived with the consequences. But sometimes, late at night in my workshop, I still remembered the satisfaction I'd felt watching Sophie's carefully planned life crumble around her. The cold pleasure of knowing that her attempt to block me had backfired so spectacularly. It wasn't my finest moment as a human being, but it had been effective. And sometimes, effectiveness matters more than grace. Jennifer and I got married the following spring, in a small ceremony with just our immediate families and closest friends. No drama, no secrets, no hidden agendas. Just two people who'd found each other and decided to build something together based on honesty and trust. Tommy was my best man, and during his speech at the reception, he made a joke about how I'd learned to choose better the second time around. Everyone laughed, including me, but the comment stuck with me. Had I chosen better, or had I simply gotten lucky? Was Jennifer a better person than Sophie, or was I a better judge of character now that I knew what to look for? Probably both. That night, as Jennifer and I were getting ready for bed in our hotel room, she asked me something that surprised me. "Do you think Sophie was happy? In your marriage, I mean?" I considered the question. I thought she was. But looking back, probably not. She wanted something I couldn't give her. What was that? Excitement, drama, the feeling that her life was a movie instead of just life. And Eric provided that? For a while, until reality set in and she realized that exciting people aren't necessarily good people. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. "I'm glad you're not exciting." "Thanks?" She laughed. "I mean, I'm glad you're steady, reliable, that you think before you act and consider consequences. Exciting men make terrible husbands. What do steady men make? Good partners. The kind of person you can build a life with." I kissed her then, grateful for the second chance I'd never expected to get. October again, 6 years to the day since the Portugal trip. I was in the middle of a penetration test debrief when my assistant buzzed through. "Mr. Harper, there's a woman here, Sophie Chen. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says you'll know why she's here." I felt the old jolt, smaller now, like a bruise that's mostly healed but still remembers the hit. "Give me 2 minutes, then send her in." I closed the laptop, straightened the single-framed photo on my desk, Jennifer and our daughter Ellie, taken last month at the pumpkin patch, and waited. Sophie walked in carrying a paper cup from the cafe downstairs. No designer bag, no perfect blowout, just a tired-looking ponytail and the faint shadows of someone who's been up with a newborn. "Hi, Ethan." "Sophie." I gestured to the chair. Sit. She did. She placed the coffee in front of me like a peace offering. Oat milk latte. You still drink them ridiculous, right? I almost smiled. Jennifer converted me to black, but thanks. Awkward silence, shorter than I expected. She took a breath. I'm not here to drag anything up. David and I are moving. He got a job in Denver. We close on the house next week. Okay. I found a box when we were packing. Things I never gave back. Your grandfather's watch, some photos, the stupid mixtape you made me the first Christmas we dated. She reached into her tote and set a small wooden box on the desk. I should have mailed it years ago. I'm sorry it took a cross-country move to grow a spine. I didn't touch the box yet. You drove 40 minutes to return a mixtape? 40 minutes is nothing compared to what I owe you. She met my eyes, steady. I was cruel. I was spoiled. I thought love was something you could outgrow when it stopped being convenient. I was wrong, and I hurt you in ways I didn't even understand until I had kids and realized someone could do that to them someday. I nodded once. That was all she was going to get in the way of absolution from me. Anything more generous belonged to her own conscience now. She exhaled, like she'd been holding that breath for years. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to put it in your hands instead of some mailing tube. Felt cleaner. I finally opened the box. The watch was there, still ticking. So was the CD in its cracked jewel case, Sharpie hearts on the insert. I turned it over in my fingers and felt nothing but mild curiosity, like handling an artifact from a dig site that no longer belonged to me. Thank you, I said. She stood. Jennifer sent us a Christmas card last year. Ellie's gorgeous. She is. Tell her thank you, for the blanket, for everything. Sophie gave a small, rueful smile. I used to hate that she was so effortlessly kind. Turns out that's the part I needed to learn most. She was at the door when I spoke again. Sophie. She paused. For what it's worth. I hope Denver's good to you. Her eyes glistened, just for a second. It already is. The door clicked shut. I sat there a long time, thumb brushing the crystal of my grandfather's watch. Then I opened the bottom drawer, dropped the box inside with all the other relics I no longer needed to keep on display, and closed it. When I got home that night, Jennifer was at the stove, Ellie on her hip, both of them singing off-key to whatever was on the playlist. Daddy! Ellie reached for me with sticky toddler hands. I took her, kissed the top of her curls, then kissed Jennifer properly. Good day? Jennifer asked, reading my face the way only she can. Closed a very old ticket, I said. She smiled, understanding everything I wasn't saying. Later, after Ellie was asleep, we stood on the back porch watching the first snow of the season drift through the floodlights. Jennifer slipped her hand into mine. You okay? I thought about the watch ticking away in a drawer, about mixtapes and oat milk lattes, and the woman who'd once been the center of my universe walking out of my office lighter than she'd walked in. Yeah, I said. I really am. Some stories end in flames. Ours ended in snow, quiet, clean, and finally completely gone.